Rise Up and Run. Stories of deliverance and transformation through the power of Jesus Christ that allows people to rise up from bondage and run in freedom. I'm your host, Janice. Hi friends, this is Janice, and I just want to welcome you back to another episode of Rise Up and Run. Today we're going to share the story of my friend Shellie and how she got sober, how she obtained and maintained sobriety. Say hi, Shellie.
Hi, everyone.
So Shellie and I met years ago at a church that we attended. We don't attend there anymore, but we attend the same church again now, right? Yeah. So, like I said, Shellie had a problem with alcohol. And is this your first time telling your story, you said?
Yes.
So, do people know around you, like coworkers and friends?
No, the only people that really know is my family.
Okay. Oh, this will be wonderful. I love that. I always like to start with childhood because I feel like there's so many things in childhood that affect how we cope with things and affect our adulthood. So what was it like for you growing up as a child? What was your family like?
I know when I was younger, my parents were broke up. So I never met my dad until probably the 4th grade when we came to Iowa. So it was my mom and my 3 sisters. We lived in Missouri. My mother and stepfather were alcoholics. And I don't remember a lot. He would beat her up. We would move from place to place just to hide from him. I was sexually molested by him when I was 6. So we had court over that, and he was convicted. And then we left. So that's when we came to Iowa. I think she still was broken because she still drank every weekend. Because I was in 3rd grade going to Black Hawk roller by myself.
Yeah. We were talking before we started recording about how as a child, you don't know what normal is. You just live like you live and think everybody else does too.
Yeah. We lived out in North Cedar, and behind our house was this big pasture. Well, across the pasture was this church. It was the Lutheran church. I started going, and then I just remember probably in 4th and 5th grade, I started walking over because it was just right across the pasture. So I would go every Sunday night, every Wednesday. Because when we came to Iowa, my 2 older sisters stayed in Missouri. Me and Diana came here, which is the sister closest to me, because we were in foster care.
I didn't know that. I'm learning so much about you, and I feel like I know you really well.
My mom didn't have very good choices in men. And my oldest sister, I had to be a baby because she said she held me, she carried me in town, and went to the welfare office and just said, "You need to take care of us because my mother's not." So everyone went to foster care, and then I don't know how we all got separated, but we did. And I don't really remember a lot of that. I do remember being in a farmhouse with lots of siblings. And I remember it was my birthday, and I got a little bitty 45 record player.
Oh.
And then I remember being sad because one day I had to leave the house.
So you enjoyed being at the foster home. There's that stability and maybe a sense of family.
And then we came here shortly after that, and then I went to church, loved it.
So how old were you in foster care?
I had to be little. So I'm thinking maybe 1 or 2.
So your mom must have gotten her life back together then to get out of foster care and go be returned to her.
Yeah, when we moved back here, it was rocky. But after several years, she never drank again. And we really don't talk about it.
When did you start drinking then?
I said I would never drink. Our youngest child he was probably 13, 14. And my husband always would Friday after work, he'd go to the bar. I didn't want to go. I did not drink. But once she became gone all the time. So then I'm bored. We had 3 kids. I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? So our friends would always do bonfires. And he's like, just have a beer. I'm like, I don't want a beer. So I used to buy those little 4-packs of Bartles and James.
Oh, yeah.
One, like I would drink one, I'm like, I'm done. And he would beg me, please. I'm like, no.
Your neighbor would beg you to drink more?
My husband.
Your husband.
He's like,
Isn't that weird?
He goes, just relax. I'm like, I don't want to relax. Well, months after months. And then I'm like, oh, I like these 4. And then we started at home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just every other weekend or so. And then it just got over the top. Like we were drinking every weekend. And then the weekends turned into during the week. And then probably like 2 years ago, he's like, okay, we're done. Oh, you might be done. I'm not.
Why did he call it quits?
Just because I think Brian is very smart at when he sees something's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We never fought or argued, but it seemed like when we were drinking, we were arguing. And he's like, it's really taken over. We need to stop. And I'm like, yeah, but now that I look back on it, I can see I had a problem. But then I was like, who are you to tell me?
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who wanted me to start drinking. I'm going to drink when I want to drink.
So you drank for 2 years, and then your husband said, I'm seeing something I don't really care for.
Probably say, yeah, probably 3 or 4 years, I'd say. And then he's like, we need to really stop. I'm like, okay.
Did you try to stop then?
Yep, and we did. Like we would occasionally do it on the weekends, but it always tinkered back, especially we love doing things outside. Like we have a pool, so Lord forbid summer comes and it's like the pool's open, let's grill, everyone comes over, and you drink. And then it got to a point where it was okay to drink on weekends, but you're not going to drink during the week. And that was fine for a while, but then I think just the alcohol took over, and I was like, who are you to tell me I'm not going to drink? Like if I want to drink on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's my business.
And how much were you drinking at that time, do you think?
Not that much. I really didn't start heavy drinking for probably, it's been almost 3 years. Once I started working third shift, that was my excuse why I can't sleep. And I didn't think I was an alcoholic because I've seen my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, I would come home from roller skating and she would be passed out on the floor, her pants were wet or vomit, so
wow.
That's what I thought an alcoholic was. But now that I look at it, I was functioning. I went to work every day. I didn't think I was an alcoholic because I would come home and drink by myself. I wasn't in the bar. Well, what do you care? Because I get drunk, go to sleep, wake up, and I'm okay. And I did that for a while, and I could just see the disgust in my husband, and I would quit for a couple months, and lo and behold, I'd come back. He would take my debit card, but we had 2 bank accounts.
Mm.
So even though he had my debit card, he didn't have my debit card.
You still had access.
Yeah.
So what did you think when you're like, hand over your debit card and when he said that?
Angry, because I'm like, I'm an adult.
Right. I can see why that would make you angry.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it wasn't, and he never said it nicely. It wasn't like, I love you, it's a concern. He goes, you're an alcoholic and you need to stop. I want your debit card. Knock it off. And that happened quite a few times, and then I would not drink for a couple months or a week or 2, and then I would come right back in. I would think I'd hide it. Then probably it started getting bad when I started hiding it. I was probably buying vodka by the fists, hiding it everywhere. I put it in little water bottles. Like you can't smell it, but whatever. I didn't think I could.
You sound like Bob. This is almost exactly like my husband's story. So I'm just like, yeah, I know.
And I was very careful. Like when we went grocery shopping, if he walked in front of me and like was putting groceries in, he couldn't tell, I might say add cash, for 20. If he didn't see it, I put that in my pocket if I was getting low on my money. And because he never looks at our bank account, but he started looking at it. And then we have Life 360.
Oh, yeah.
And there would be times, because if I left for work, I would leave a little early so I could get it on the way to work, so I wouldn't have to get it at 7 o'clock in the morning. But he'd always say, oh, I see you stopped at Casey's. Or if I didn't get it the night before and I had to do it in the morning, I'd get a message like, what are you doing at Casey's?
Oh, boy.
And I used to get so infuriated. Like, who does he think he is? Well, he was like, stop drinking. But then I just didn't have that. I was so angry because what do you care? Like, I'm not hurting you.
Oh, my gosh. How many times he said that to me. It's amazing. Oh, my gosh.
And you don't think of it.
Yeah. So did the kids know that you had a problem?
Mm-mm.
The kids didn't know.
Mackenzie did, just
The daughter.
because she was home.
Yeah.
When we would argue once in a while, she'd just say, what's wrong with you guys? Like, you guys don't ever argue. At that time, I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, what do you care? I'm going to work every day.
Yeah. So it was his problem.
Right.
When did you realize that Brian might be onto something?
I just thought he was a jerk. He would wake me up at 4:00 every day because he gets home at 4. So I still wanted to make sure that we had our family.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really important. And this is before I got really bad. So I wanted to make sure that we still ate supper and did things together. And he would start just coming in and like, time to get up. Huh? You know, he's like, get up. He wouldn't like hug me or kiss me on the forehead. It was like, get up. Now that we've talked about it, he's like, I just put blockers on because I didn't want to fight and I didn't want to argue with you. My cheeks would get really red. I remember I would get up. I would go in the kitchen in the ice trays and try to wipe my cheeks because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're red. He's going to know. Well, it isn't that kind of hot like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'd say, can I have a kiss? And I would get so angry because I knew he just wanted to smell my breath. I used to get mad all the time. And then I still never thought I had a problem. I mean, and he would always say, I don't know if I can take it anymore. I'm like, oh, well, do what you have. I mean, and we've been together since we were 17. Like, we're going on 38 years. And I can't believe that I'm sitting here telling you, like, I love my husband with everything. He's everything.
He's a good guy.
And I was just like, oh, well, sucks to be you. You know, I'm like.
So when did it finally dawn on you that, like, I know that you went to a group at church.
I went to a group at church, which was fine for a while. But my thing is every once in a while we'd still drink on the weekend. And then he'd say, okay, no drinking on Sunday.
So he called it. He called the shots as far as that goes, which is hard for an alcoholic. You can't get permission to drink one day and then all of a sudden, okay, we're not going to drink now.
Right. And I think in his mind, just because we've talked about it, he just wanted to be normal. He didn't want to be that mean person. He was like, okay, he goes, do you think you can handle it? I'm like, oh yeah, I can handle it. I'll just drink Friday and Saturday. I got it. You know, and I remember, could not wait until Friday night to have a couple of drinks, or Saturday. I was like, oh my gosh, is it noon yet? Is it noon? And then I'm like, oh, if it's noon, it's too early. If I say, let's go have a drink, he would get upset. So I'd have to like just sit there itching and waiting for him to say, okay, you want to have a drink? Yeah. But it all changed on September 9th of last year. I don't even remember him coming home that morning. I really don't. But he says he came home and I was sitting in the chair and he just said, I'm done. Don't remember that at all. I remember at 4:00 in the evening, waking up, and he said, my parents are here. And I'm like, what? And he said, my parents are here. And next thing you know, his mom comes and sits on my bed. And she's like, we love you. And I just remember just sitting there like, what is going on? And my father-in-law was there. And then we sat outside and I was bawling.
Because you knew this was kind of like an intervention?
Yeah.
Were you mad?
No, I don't think I was mad. I was humiliated.
Okay.
Like, how could you do this? Because they had no clue. And when they tell me about it, they said that because Brian stopped over there and my mother-in-law said, you know, Brian came crying today. I'm like, for what? She goes, all he kept saying is Shellie. And they're like, oh my gosh, does she have cancer? What's wrong? And he goes, no, she's an alcoholic. And he goes, I can't do it. He goes, I can't. Like, it's over. If it don't stop, he goes, I did it over and over and over. And he goes, I love her. He goes, but I can't. And by this time, he was crying. And she's like, my son is 50 years, 52. And she goes, I've never seen him cry like that. And then by this time, she's crying. I'm crying. My father-in-law is looking at me. They had no clue.
Did you have a good relationship with your in-laws prior to that?
Yeah, it was not strong, but she's always been there for me if I needed anything. I was just sitting there humiliated. And then Brian's like, well, the kids are coming. I'm like, what? I'm like, they don't need to come. I said, you know what? This is enough. Like, I got to process this. I mean, it was probably like 3 hours. They were there. And I said, I'm done. And he goes, you say that all the time. I'm like, Brian, I don't know. I said, I just know this is different. I said, but I do know that you need to stop too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, but then he would always say, it's not my problem. Like, I can have a beer. It's not my problem. You're the one with the alcohol problem, not me. And so, I just remember looking at him. He goes, we're done. And I said, is it we're done or I'm done? And he goes, our marriage is way more important than this. He goes, we're done. Both of us.
Both
and
of you. Okay.
neither one have drank since.
What part of your sobriety did Christ play?
I think just I prayed daily. I mean, I was sick. I'll never forget that Friday. We usually go to Village, and that's how old we are. We go to Village on Fridays. But I remember sitting at the booth and literally my body was in withdrawal that Friday, and I was shaking, trembling. And I just looked at Brian. He goes, you got it. You know, we can get through. He goes, if you need to go, you know, somewhere to get help. I'm like, I got this. And so we prayed about it. I just kept praying. And that whole night, like, I couldn't write anything or focus until Sunday. Like, all Friday night, I was up all night. I had massive leg cramps, dry heaving, throwing up. Like, for 2 days, I couldn't even function.
Really? Wow, girl.
It was horrible. And then it was funny. Well, it isn't funny, but it kind of was, because I knew I had a bottle.
You had a stash?
Oh, I had them everywhere. And so I remember that night, and I prayed a lot. And I just said, you know what? You got to give me the strength. And right there's like, go get that bottle out of that closet. And then it was like a Texas Fit. It was a good bottle.
Vodka?
Yeah. Tito's was my favorite. And so I ended up, I had just had a couple of drinks out of it. So it was almost full. And I just remember looking at it, took it down, and I just dumped it down the drain. And I left it on the counter. And Brian woke up the next day, and I said, I didn't want to hide. I was lying to him. You know, I was saying I wasn't drinking, and I was. There was a couple times he found the hidden empty bottle in the garbage, and he would tape his ring on it, didn't care. He went like a month and a half without wearing his wedding ring, which is sacred to me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't care. And so I go, I want to be honest. And he goes, you didn't drink anything? I go, I promise I didn't. I dumped it. I go, but I wanted to show you this bottle. And that was the thing that I didn't realize how it was hurting him. He goes, the lying. He goes, you looked straight at me and pierced my heart. He goes, you were lying. And he goes, I knew you were lying, but you would still argue like, I'm not lying. I just remember just telling God, please let him, you know, forgive me someday. And that's what he said. Like, God told him that day, today's the day. I left you that morning. I was so furious and angry. He goes, really? I was calling it. And God's like, one more. Give her one more time.
Wow.
How do you know it's different? I know. I said, you know, I know God is with me. And really, like, I don't even think about it. The 9th of this month was 7 months. Without
Of
a drop.
sobriety?
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Without a drop. And he's like, we were just sitting there yesterday. I'm like, we forgot 7 months. And he goes, isn't that great? And inside, I was like, no, it's not great. Like, I have 7 months. And he goes, that isn't the focus. Because you remember every time you went by a bar, you're like, oh, look at all those cars. Look at it's 1 o'clock, or, it's 7 o'clock at night and it's packed, or it's Friday, or every time we went to groceries.
So why do you think that was such a thing? Like you drive by a bar.
Because my thing is everyone drinks.
Okay.
At work, that's all they do. It's like, oh, let's go drink. There's a bar open 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they on our little webpage, they even said they're going to make you breakfast. And that was my thing. Like, I was like, I don't go to the bar. I don't. Like, I'm drinking at home, so I'm not going to. People would go to the bar and be there until 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And I think that's what's a lot of people get hung up on is you still had a job. Mm-hmm. You were still taking care of things.
I still went to church.
You still went to church.
Which is crazy.
But, I think the thing that I love about our church is that we got all sorts of people at at Hope City Church in Waterloo, Iowa. Yeah. I remember the first time I went there, I thought, oh, look at all these beautiful sinners.
Which is true.
It is. And you've got every form of sin represented in that place, right? And so it's such a safe place to go and to know that, yeah, I got drunk or high last night, but I'm still more than welcome here.
Right.
And I think when you're talking about your husband, one of the things that I feel like is kind of not acknowledged is the torment that happens to the family. And just when you were talking about Brian getting upset that you just looked him straight in the eye and lied. Yeah. That's just crushing because I've always admired your marriage. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but you guys are like thick as thieves.
Right.
And you get along so well. And I've just always admired that. And so this is really eye-opening to see what alcohol did to you guys. Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy to see. Like I said, you don't really realize it. And then I remember, I'm like, are we ever going to get it back? God's really opened my eyes to you hurt him. You might not have cheated on, because that's what I'm like, well, it isn't like I cheated on you.
Right.
And God's like, you cheated on him with alcohol. And I never looked at it like that. I said, because I used to say, just calm down. And I did. I chose alcohol over our marriage. And it was just like me having an affair because I lied. I would sneak. I did everything I could.
That's a good analogy.
And then it was funny because it was probably 2 months ago, maybe a little longer. We're, you always have that one closet. You're just like, ugh.
Closet.
We have to clean it out. And
I got more than one, girl.
So we were cleaning it out, and Brian comes out. He's like, Shellie. I'm like, what? There was 2 water bottles full of vodka, and then 1 water bottle full of lemonade. And he's like, are you stashing? I'm like, I went around the house. I was kind of made myself sick when I really looked at the little stack, down in the basement. My big thing was laundry because it was down in the basement. So I had little stash, which should have been an eye opener. But when I would wake up, it would be 6 hours, 4 or 5 hours with no alcohol. So after about an hour, your body's like, hey, and you literally start trembling and oh my God, I need something. And so I had these little things all the way around the house because I would just take a quick couple swigs and okay.
And take the edge off for you.
And so I went around the house looking and I'm like, you're pathetic. They were everywhere.
Wow. How confident are you now of your sobriety? I think there's something important about looking back long enough to know that you don't want to go back there again, but then leave that there and press on.
I will never drink again.
You can say that with confidence.
I can honestly say this time, and that's what's weird, because like I said, we're summer people. We love the pool. We have to remember everything's not about drinking. We can have our pool open and grill, and Brian can smoke meat. We don't have to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I finally have said, I can never drink again. And before I'd always be like, well, maybe in a couple months. Or, the 4th of July, maybe I could handle one. And this time I looked at him and I said, I can never have one morsel of alcohol because one's too many and one's not enough.
Oh, that's good. One's too many and one's not enough.
Because you're not going to just drink one. I never drank for fun. I did at first. I had a great life.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, why would, I don't know. Like, I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing job.
Great kids.
Yeah, you would think way back in the day when we were struggling, that'd be the time to drink. But no, I choose the time that things are going well. And I do have to say this. I'm very embarrassed of my alcoholism, because that isn't who I am. A lot of people didn't know. I went to church. Yes, I had my little group. There's a lot of people that dealt with me every Sunday. That was something I never told anyone. I got up the other day and I went out and Brian was cooking supper and I'm like, I got it. And he's like, what? I'm like, my year anniversary. I said, I'm not going to plaster it all over Facebook or anything. I said, but I'm going to start gripping that I'm an alcoholic. So if someone comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to go to a bar after work? Instead of saying, no, thank you, I'm going to say, you know what? I can't, because I'm a recovering alcoholic. And so he's like, really? I'm like, I know. And then he's like, Shellie, Janice Hewitt is like messaging me saying she messaged you and you're not answering. And it was you asking me about the podcast. And I told Brian, tell me that's not God. Because literally it just came out of my mouth. And he'll tell you, he goes, it wasn't even seconds. And he just happened to look at his phone and he said, and it was Janice asking you about it. I'm like, so this is God telling me that I'm doing the right thing.
You for sure are. You know, do you remember when Bob and I did that video for church and I posted it?
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many people reached out to us after that and said, hey, I got a problem too, or this is my other problem. But they felt like, you know, we're out there about our struggle because it doesn't serve any purpose to keep that a secret. No purpose. And I think I said this on one of my other podcasts, but somebody once said, recover out loud.
That's good too.
People want to see what it looks like and to know that, you know, you still went to church, you still had a job, but you had a problem. And I think we don't need to be embarrassed about our problems. I'm not telling you how to feel,
right?
But God gives us our struggles. What do they say? There's a testimony with the test. Right. And, you know, he doesn't give us things to deal with so we can just keep them to ourselves and sit in shame, because that's what the devil wants for us, is to just don't tell anybody. That's too embarrassing. And God wants us to be like, look what God did in my life.
Right. And that's funny because I'll never forget that Brian's like, you see Janice and Bob's thing on Facebook? I'm like, no. He goes, you need to watch it. I'm like, what is he talking about? And I read it. I'm like, oh. And he goes, I'm not telling you what to do. He said, but you know what? We know Bob and Janice personally, and they're good friends. He goes, maybe that could be somebody you could reach out to.
And you did.
And I did. And I will never forget going to Hope City at that meeting. I was scared to death. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And Bob pulled up beside me. He's like, let's go. And and just sitting here now, I'm just thinking, you know, people need that.
They do. They need someone to come alongside with them and say, you have a problem? I do too. Let's go together. Yep. Yeah. So what do you think is keeping you sober now? Are you working a program? Are you into meetings or anything like that?
No. It seems bad, but I don't want to talk about it every day. I don't want that to define me.
Yeah.
And that's just who I am. Everyone is different.
It is. My husband swears by AA. It is the thing that worked for him, but there'll be countless people who say, I leave those meetings and I just want to drink.
I have a group of 6 women that we meet, which is really weird because they don't even know.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. I don't want to dwell on it. I thank God every day that I stopped drinking. My first 3 weeks of sobriety, I would drive to my mother-in-law. She would get up early every single day because I got off work at 7, and she would have coffee. And I would sit at her house from 7 to 9 to drink coffee, which when I think about it, I'm like, boy, no wonder I couldn't sleep. But to drink coffee just because she goes, you need to get out of that habit. Every day for 3 weeks, she had coffee on, got up, and helped me change that habit. And like, she always tells me how proud she is and how strong I am.
If you had to give advice to somebody who's either in the middle of it or wondering, do I have a problem? What would you say?
I'd first say that I think, honestly, if you pray about it, God tells you. Like, so if you're asking if you have a problem, you probably have a problem.
That's good.
Just because, why would you ask if you didn't have a problem? And you know what? Just pray that somebody comes into your life that helps, because I strongly believe it has to be the right person. Not everybody has a relationship like me and my husband. And I about threw it away.
Yeah. For alcohol.
Over alcohol. And this is so weird, but there's times like I get home from work and, I'm just sitting there and thinking, and I'm like, just think I could be here all by myself.
Yeah.
Him never coming home, going to work. And then I look at like, what an alcoholic would I be if he wasn't there and he didn't love me enough more time to say, I'm going to give it to you. Because you know what? I'm there for anyone, because it's, no matter what people say, it is humiliating when, no matter what your addiction is, even if, you have a food addiction, when you are an addict, it's hard to tell somebody that you have a problem and you need help. This society has made it so hard for people to ask. So
yeah, it's very humbling. You really have to be willing to do that.
Right. And I think that if you pray and ask God, he will show you and tell you. But I pray all the time. And I always knew prayer was strong, but you see what God has done and what the prayer has done, that I pray for everybody now.
When God shows up, well, he's always there, but when you let him show up, that intimacy that you have with Christ is unlike any other time in your life. It's so sweet. That fellowship is so sweet.
And that's what I think I'm just getting that for the first time. I mean, I've always loved God. And like I said, he's always been there. Not that I knew it, but all I can think is, wonder if Brian didn't love God. Wonder if he wasn't a godly man, or he didn't believe in God. Like, wonder if he just didn't listen.
Right.
It just took one more time. And that's what I keep telling myself.
I'm going to put my hand on you, hold your hand, and I'm going to pray. Okay, Heavenly Father, it was so good to hear Shellie's story. And I thank you that you gave her the humility to be willing to share it. And I know that her friends and her family, who this will be news to, will be so proud of her. God, we just want to exalt you. And part of that exalting is sharing our lowest moments so that others can find freedom and healing as well. Lord, we praise your name. We pray that the power that you have used to heal Shellie and Brian and their marriage and their situation would be known to everybody who's struggling. Help us to open our mouths and to seek out help when we need it. I pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.